I've been debating doing this for a long time. Mostly because I was just wondering whether I wanted to put in the extra work to make this possible or not. But, as you might tell, I'm playing a Japanese game, because I have a Japanese Wii. I don't soft mod my consoles. But welcome to Zangeki no Reginleiv. This was made by the same people behind the Earth Defense Force games, which I haven't played, so make your own comparisons. By the way, there is a downloadable English patch for this game. However, it's only for the menus. Although you do a lot of menuing in this game, so it's still helpful even though you can't understand anything else. So that in the bottom right is a movie demonstrating how to use the Wii Motion Plus, because Wii Motion Plus is actually quite useful for this game. The top option is a list of training videos that explain all the different game mechanics, and they go quite in depth. As you can see, there's a fair number of them, and also lists how long each individual video is. But anyway, we're going to go right into story mode. The other option in that menu is online mode, because there was a quite extensive online mode for this game. It had a bunch of monsters and it had a bunch of enemy types that aren't available in the offline version. But I think with Wiimfi, you can possibly still get online. I think it's still in testing. I'll go over each of these options later, but the bottom two options are the options menu and save. So if you want to save your profile, just go to the second one from the bottom. And also, the minus and plus buttons are how you can switch off the profile or switch it over to mana crystal count. And I'll explain that more in depth later too. But right now this top option is to take us into the story mode missions. I think for these videos I'm going to do 2 missions each, one for each character because you can switch between them. And I'll explain more about that later, but each mission, in the lower right there's an option to change the difficulty for it. There's easy and normal available right away at the top, and then it goes to hard, hardest, and inferno. And you unlock those by completing the game. Also, the cutscenes in this game don't have subtitles, so I attempted to do a little translation for what's being said, but I'm not that good with Japanese, so I did what I could.
子供の頃こんな話を聞いた。この森の遥か北、海の彼方にはヨトゥンヘイムという国がある。そこに住むのは神々ですら恐れるという怪物、巨人族。そんな話が信じられるか。伝説だ。そう思っていた。今日までは。
Oddly enough, I remember this game getting a little press back when it came out. This was, I think, a few months before Xenoblade Chronicles, and it was during that time when people were bitter at Nintendo for not localizing stuff.
What was that?
のろしだ。村で何かあったみてえだぞ。
何？
襲撃かもしれね
え。まさか強戦士か。だとしたら厄介なことになるぞ。村に戻ろう。
信じられねえ。俺は夢を見てるに違えねえぞ。
夢だと思いたいが現実だ。
こりゃとんでもねえことだぞ。ありゃ一体何なんだ。
巨人族だ。伝説じゃなかったのか。
神々ですら巨人を恐れるって話だ。
これほどの怪物とは。だが勇士の証を立てる時だ。 こんな強敵はそういないぞ。
バカ言うな。あの大きさ見てみろよ。クマだってあれに比べりゃ子猫みたいなもんだ。勝てっこねえ。
だが戦わねば皆殺しにされる。
逃げりゃいい。逃げりゃ何か助かるってもんだろ
う。奴らは追ってくるぞ。俺たちは逃げられても子供と老人は逃げられん。
だけど
勇者だけが死後バルハラへ行ける。臆病者は冥界ニブルヘイムへ行くしかない。
だけども相手は巨人なんだぞ。
真の戦士は逃げたりしない。立ち向かうのさ。どれほど敵が強かろうと覚悟を決めろ。
あっくそ、やるしかねえかよ。アスガルドの神々様よ、どうか祝福を。俺っちの魂をバルハラに導きたまえ。ねやら
戦士たちよ、武器を取れ。雄たけびを上げろ。邪悪な巨人を蹴散らしオーディンに勝利を捧げるのだ。オーディンのために、
オーディンのために。
兄様、あの人間は戦うつもりです。
無謀な。
おそらく全滅でしょう。
見殺しにはできぬ。加勢する。
それこそ無謀です。相手は巨人。私たちでも勝てるかどうか。
あの人間、ここで死すべきではない。しばしミズガルドにとどまってもら
う。ですが
我々だけでは巨人に勝てる。だが人間と力を合わせれば、あるいは行くぞ。
Have I mentioned yet that this is based on Norse mythology? I don't know very much about that, so anyone who does, feel free to leave comments about how accurate or inaccurate this portrayal of Ragnarok is. So currently we're playing as Frey, who is the brother, and Freya, who is his twin sister. Now these villagers have a lot that they say, and they're going to go to a lot of different places, but for this first level, it's very straightforward. We're just dashing in to take care of these giants. We have a couple attacks we can do, and our attacks have different effects based on which way we go with them. Horizontal sword swipes do that, but you can also go vertically and knock giants into the air and dismember them. Now, crystals are flying out of them. Oops, hit the pause menu. Now this is the bow and arrow, obviously much better at a distance. You have to hold A and B and pull the Wii Remote back, and then aim and let them go to fire shots with that, whereas with the sword, you just swing in a direction. And when you do 4 or so attacks, that blue line appears, and you do sort of like a power-up attack, like Legend of Zelda when Link swings his sword in a big-ass circle. You can sort of do that with the bow and arrow too, except it's a piercing shot that goes through multiple enemies. Now these crystals that these giants are dropping, I want to pick up as many of them as possible, because they're a currency, sort of, that I can use to upgrade not just my weapons, but also unlock new weapons, and also up the health of each character. Now, it's not so much the case for these giants, but where exactly you hit them does matter. As you might notice, everything's kind of falling apart, and by everything, I mean the giants. Because they're kind of getting, like, chopped in half, and parts are flying all over the place. Dismemberment is actually a key game mechanic, not just for effectively taking down enemies. And, by the way, the objective for each map is pretty much just to clear out all the enemies. There is a village usually, but I haven't seen the village get destroyed to a point where I failed a mission. And that's how many mana crystals we earned. and those will carry over to the menu. And I'll just show you this once to demonstrate that you have 5 different file blocks you can work with in this game. So no worries about overwriting previous saves. Now then, back to this menu. The option right below the mission selection is to get a better look at each character. This is also where you can change characters using this top button. So right now we're Frey, click that, and now we're switched over to Freya. You can see she has 3 weapons at her disposal as opposed to 2, and has 50 points less health. And I'll explain what those weapons are once we get into mission number 2. And actually, if you look back at the previous mission, you'll see a star there on the blue side, because it keeps track of which character you beat the mission with and what difficulty you were playing on. And unfortunately, if you play on the higher difficulty, you still have to go back and complete it on the easier ones to get, like, full completion. Now, just in case any of you are curious how long this video series might last on this game, the offline mode has about, I think it's 63 stages in it. So we're going to be here a while. And by the way, every time you see me doing a dash or a cartwheel to the side or a backflip, that is done by flicking the nunchuck, and it is really sensitive sometimes. I have to be very careful not to accidentally dodge when I don't want to. Also, it's a little awkward, but jumping is double tapping C. Double tapping because if you just hold C, that allows you to strafe from side to side. So, you might be wondering how exactly the NPC warriors are controlled, or if they have any specific movement pattern at all. For the most part, they just kind of wander off in whatever direction you end up moving. And I'm going to show off Freya's weapon set here by showing she has a magic rod which can shoot these projectiles. They don't go in a straight line, they kind of arc a little bit, so it's almost like using a magical grenade launcher. And when you attack enemies with her sword, which is weaker than Frey's, it causes enemies to drop blue balls, which refill your mana gauge. You should also note that most environmental pieces are destructible, so you can knock over things like trees, split through boulders, knock over fences, stuff like that. And I should also note that you've probably noticed it already, but sometimes when too much stuff is happening, the frame rate just tanks. I should also apologize in advance, because there will be a couple of times when the camera isn't positioned really well to see what's going on. And that's because for the first few missions of these recordings, I was playing on the default camera, which kind of automatically goes where it wants. And, oh geez, I got the arm off. Now I'm going to show a little bit of what makes Freya's bow different, which is it can lock on to multiple targets. This makes Freya's bow quite useful for dealing damage to several enemies at a time from a distance. Like, even further away than her magic rod would. Oh, jeez. That hut never stood a chance. Oh, and you just saw me pick up a heart icon. That replenishes, I believe it's about 10% of my health. And also, these NPCs that are running around, you'll see they have health bars above their heads. It replenishes 10% of their health, too. The multiple targets have, like, homing arrows on them, which sometimes it just flies around like that aimlessly, like Yondu's arrow. But yeah, the magic rod is quite useful for mid-range enemies. And, oh. I got a little excited for a moment because I thought a different mana crystal appeared, but I forgot that doesn't happen in this mission. Now, we have a shield and there is a guard function, but I'm very rarely going to do it. Because that's not the kind of player I am. I'm all offense, and then if I get hit, I'll consider defense. And just wandering around, you can hear what some of the NPCs are saying. Albeit, if you don't know Japanese, you won't have any idea what they're saying to each other. But fortunately, with the radar, you can pretty easily tell whenever new enemies come up. They're the red on the radar, while all your allies are in the green. So I'm going to take my time going up here. Now, Zangeki no Reginleiv is not quite Skyrim. There are some areas if you just try to walk up, you can't get there, but fortunately you can side flip up these hills. Seriously considering picking this up as a speed game, possibly sometime. But we're far enough away that we don't have aggro on the giants, so we can take out some of them from a distance. Just makes this part of the fight a little easier. Because it is pretty easy to just lose track of a giant, and they'll wander behind you and just smack you in the back of the head with their clubs as you're trying to take care of all the other giants. That's also where the upswing comes in handy, because it'll knock the giants into the air and then they'll take a while to get up. So that buys you a lot of time to do whatever else you want to do. Now, as we're taking care of these monsters at this encampment, more enemies just appeared on the radar. But I'm going to take my sweet time getting some of these crystals first, because they do add up in the long run. Especially when you see how they get used, and the quantity in which they get used. So I'm just going to speed things up by rapidly dodging forward. They're very good about usually having gaps in fences or constructing buildings so you don't get caught on them, so that you can just forward dodge through most of the area with very little trouble. And that's a little demonstration of how I should not have the auto camera on. Because sometimes if there's only one enemy in the area and it flies into the sky, it can end up getting stuck or partially blocked by the environment. And you saw briefly, and I'm going to go back for it in a moment, as soon as I take care of this guy at least. I admit, I don't get tired of slicing enemies in half in this game. But just off to my left, there's that 3 heart icon. That replenishes your and the NPC's health by, I believe, 30%. These don't sound like big numbers, but they do make a noticeable difference. Also, a little bit of graphical pop-in, because they had to make this game run smooth somehow. Alright, we are just about done with this particular mission. Got a couple stragglers to take care of, which are terrorizing the locals. See if I can get it from long range with the wand. Well, almost got it. Oh! Well, he tried. He certainly tried. Also, quite fortunate, I cannot harm these people with the magic rod. Oh, that's another thing too. The whole time this is going on, the warrior NPCs are attacking these giants. If you look in the background, you will notice that they are in fact scoring some kills. It's just, well, we're Freya and Freya, and we're doing most of the legwork. Alright, now to show off another menu option, this third one from the top. This one takes you to an option to purchase more health for your character. Freya on the left, Freya on the right. As you can see, Freya has a lower health to start with, and by shelling out 50 crystals, you can boost the health by 10 points. Now every time you do that, the price for it goes up. So that's one thing you can spend your mana crystals on. The other is directly below that, although first I'm going to switch back to Frey, because I'm going to switch off characters for each mission. Now we'll go here, and this brings us to weapon forging. The weapons at the top are the weapons that each character already has, and the weapons below that are what they can become. Or rather, I shouldn't say that because you'll still have them in your armory to go back to later. Extra things you can forge related to that. Frey can use long swords, great swords, and hammers as melee weapons, and then also has spears and longbows, which can be used for mid-range attacks. Now, I'm going to forge this great sword, and then that'll open up an additional option for later, and it just keeps branching out the further down you go. You'll see this next weapon requires 2 different crystals, and I'll get more into that in future videos, but you can get other crystals by doing different things to different enemies. Now I'm also going to get this new magic rod for Freya, and that'll open up a couple more options for her. You notice that the weapon that branches off of it isn't always the same as the one that you initially went for. So I go here, and the first weapon is the longsword, and the second weapon is the bow. So I'm going to click on the longsword. That'll take me to this menu. The first menu is swords. The second one is great swords. So we just got that great sword, and I'm going to go ahead and switch to it. Great swords, as you can see, are, well, they're great. You can't block when you're using them, which kind of sucks, but next time on Zangeki no Reginleiv, I'm going to show off the great sword a little bit in battle.